to talk about Misgiving Day. Misgiving Day. All right. So here's our title here. Our title page is this. And Misgiving Day, how many millions displaced, hunted, cheated, lied to, dispossessed, raped, harassed, assimilated, enslaved, murdered, you know, and who's in the middle there? Andrew Jackson. Many people are not aware of his bloody history with Africans and so-called Native Americans. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And let's check this little Mutabaruka.
Red man, you have to fight for your land. Just like the days of old, you'll have to be cold and bold. Don't let the white man tongue fool you. Don't let his papers cool you. With tricks and lies, he stole the land. Refuse and resist the white man plan. Stand on big mountain, it's your ancestors' earth. Land is power, without it life has no worth. Stand on big mountain, you'll have to be strong. Good must overcome, the struggle is long. He came to Turtle Island with fire water in hand. Gave it to the red man, then stole his land. Gave us an image of Indian so wild. The image we got on the screen as a child. Who is to blame? Who is to blame?
So that was Mutabaruka, and from his album Any Which Way. And, you know, this is a shot various Native indigenous people across the United States. We're also going to include those peoples that were in Canada because they didn't have the same boundaries, lines that were drawn up for them, and there are many. And they come in all different shapes and complexions, features, many different, scientists would say many different phenotypes. And our inspiration for today's subject comes from a brother by the name of Reverend Dr. Ishaka Musa Boroshango. He had a congregation in the DC area. It was called the Church of the Black Messiah. And he wrote a few books. And one of the books that we're using today is African People and European Holidays, a Mental Genocide. So he looks at what he calls Misgiving Day. And then he has another one, looks at the Merry Mess. He focuses on Kwanzaa. And so this book, and then book 2 has to do with the 4th of July. So he has, and then he has a book on sisters, and he was very prolific. And there is a picture here on the left of Dr. Ishaka Musa Boroshango. He passed away in 2004, and this is the introduction to that book. So, you know, he kind of starts out and he tells us, you know, he puts it in a proper context of, Thanksgiving Day. So when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, this was the idealized version of Thanksgiving, pious pilgrims, and they were joined with noble savages, and they had a Thanksgiving dinner, and everything was airy. And here it continues. So that first painting was done in 1925, and this one here, 1914. What did Malcolm say? We didn't land at Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us, and Plymouth Rock landed on the native peoples too. And they didn't call it Plymouth Rock. It was called something else. And here, the Massasoit, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, smoking the ceremonial peace pipe with the Plymouth colony governor, John Carver, in 1621. And when you see those images, it just seems like, wow, that was just such a beautiful time, a beautiful exchange of cultures coming together, people coming from across the Atlantic Ocean and being welcomed by the native people here. But then this is out of Dr. Isa Musa's book, Ishaka Musa's book, and he talks about the mental state of the pilgrims. 44 of the Pilgrim Fathers died in their first winter in America, and Governor Bradford said of the survivors, scarcely 50 remained, and of these, only 6 or 7 sound persons. George Thorpe, a highly educated colonist, thought, however, that despondency was the real cause. He said in 1621, more do die here of disease of the mind than of the body. So he's trying to say they were kind of crazy. Just that voyage can make you go crazy back in those days. And coming in, experiencing the type of winters that can take place here in the so-called Americas. At their first Thanksgiving in 1621, there were only 6 or 7 sane people left in the whole Pilgrim colony. The rest were mentally deranged. In other words, putting it in modern everyday language, the bulk of them were just plain crazy. Okay, and sometimes that's where we can understand why things are still kind of crazy. And then a captain, Captain John Smith, wrote, "So great was our famine that a savage we slew and buried. The poorer sort took him up again and ate him. And so did divers ones another boiled and stewed with herbs. And one amongst the rest did kill his wife, powdered her, and had eaten part of her." And this is from the General History of Virginia, Book 4, page 294, 1606 to 1625. So that kind of gives us, that's not our typical image of.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That level of madness is just striking.
Yeah. I stopped sharing my screen because I wanted to give you a chance to comment, or if you had any questions that maybe I can answer. I'm not a full expert. I just did some research for today's session. Anybody want to comment? I guess not, huh? That's probably pretty gross. You know, just keep it moving, Emma. All right. No one wants to touch it. Okay, I don't blame you.
Well, I was going to say something quick. Minister Imhotep, we also have the young brother Jalen is back with us from Sunday that did the closing prayer.
Yes, I see him. Yes.
As well as we're returning, my returning friend Tahita. This is about her third time.
Yes.
Hi, Tahita. How are you?
Good name.
I'm glad you said her name because I need to practice saying her name. I didn't want to mess up. But Tahita, how are you today? And Jalen, I'm glad you could join us. All right, I'm just gonna jump back in, and I'll pop out from time to time. So yeah, that's bad. All right. Oh, you know what? There's something I need to also share as well, and let me do that now. It just occurred to me. So Reverend Isa Musa Boroshango's work is an inspiration, but also this article that, strangely enough, comes from the Muslim Times. And, it talks about the American Indian Holocaust, known as the 500-year war and the world's longest Holocaust in the history of mankind. Well, that's debatable because the Africans are still in a Holocaust, but he said genocide and denying it. Why are we not taught that natives of the United States and Canada were exterminated? The death toll from 95 million to 114 million, over 100 million killed. Christopher Columbus murdered 500,000 natives. Then I heard this portion before, and that had to do with a statement that Hitler made. It goes like this. President Roosevelt called Hitler and asked him to stop doing what he did to the Jews. And his reply, he laughed because he said, well, I learned this from studying the history of the United States. And so here's a quote. Hitler's concept of concentration camps, as well as the practicality of genocide, owed much, so he claimed, to his studies of English and United States history. He admired the camps for the Boer prisoners in South Africa and for the Indians in the Wild West, and often praised to his inner circle the efficiency of America's extermination by starvation and even combat of the, I'm going to say, so-called red savages who could not be tamed by captivity. So isn't that something? And then also the Native Americans, they have the highest mortality rate of any U.S. minority because of U.S. action and policy. It's not just a scattered event here and there. The biggest killers were smallpox, measles, influenza, whooping cough, diphtheria, typhus, bubonic plague, cholera, scarlet fever, all imported by the European colonists. And so this is a good article, good source material if you want to find out more about it. It has good pictures. And wow, this is an Indian boarding school. So they removed all these children from their parents and from their families to assimilate them, make them so-called civilized. And here, this is representing God told them to go forth and kill the Indians. I guess that's General Custer. And yeah, so this is a good reference material, and gives good. It's well refereed, and yeah. So I just wanted to say that, and then also this article that was put out by Smithsonian Magazine, How to Tell Thanksgiving Story on its 400th anniversary. Scholars are unraveling the mysteries, the myths of surrounding 1621 feast, which found the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag cementing a newly established alliance. So just wanted to also let you know about that. Okay. So
the numbers was just staggering.
Yeah.
95 million to 114 million. I knew the diseases were devastating, but I think that's probably the first time I've seen numbers like that attached to that. Wow.
Yeah. Anyone know why the diseases were so devastating to the people in this region?
They had no immunity against it. And of course, the Europeans, they had some immunity to it, and and they lived with it. But the native people, being on this side of the waters, they just had no natural immunity to these more or less what we think of common diseases today, especially the cold and flu. And it just wiped out huge numbers.
How about the environment? Were there in swampy areas?
Sometimes they were, particularly like when you think of Florida and places like that. But in other places, no, they weren't in swampy areas. It's just as Katabasi is saying that. So people in the Mediterranean regions and people in Africa and people in Europe, they had been exposed to a lot of things, and over time had gotten developed an immunity to those things, or their immune system could better fight those diseases, and so they could deal with it better. But the Native American, can you imagine the type of life? Well, they said that, one of the things the Native Americans, they didn't understand what it meant to tell a lie. That's let's just pause there. That's heavy right there. Looks like Minister Amadi wanted to say something. Is that?
Yeah, I was just going to say that they also took disease-infected blankets and gave them to the Native Americans, and left them for them to get. And so with the very purpose of infecting the tribes.
I find that very hard to believe, and I don't know why you would come on this program and say something like that. Why would they do? I mean, oh wait, yeah.
Well, after all, they don't have a very good track record.
Their history is against them for sure. Yeah, that's for sure.
And they don't want to teach that history.
Right.
Yes. Well, would you? You have to ask yourself, would you want people to know? And then so this today or tomorrow, this weekend is a reminder of just that tragic history. Anyone else? Thank you, Amadi. I was just kidding.
Well, I will say this one last thing too, though, that actually that is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to face the truth about our past discretions so that we can learn our lessons so we can change.
Yes.
And so hopefully I would want to at least reconcile with it and do whatever I could do to reconcile, my past, the mistakes of my ancestors. I'll put it like that.
Yes, yes.
But,
Uh-huh.
but how could you all say this about the people who brought Christianity to us? They're they're Christians. Huh?
They don't have a good track record either. Christianity doesn't have a good track record either.
I am being facetious. I have a quick question, not to take us off, but my daughter asked, and I really didn't have an answer, just a quick answer. How did the Indian, when we talk about the Africans in the presence of Africans in America, where did the Indians, how did they come about? With just a quick answer, and I can learn later about the whole story.
There's a controversy today. There's a group of people, mostly people that we would look and say are African Americans, but they call themselves Moors or indigenous people. And I don't want to get into that, but their thing is that the so-called Native Americans are Black people. They were Moors. Traditionally, there's some holes in that, and I don't want to. It would cause an argument. Somebody sees this program, and etc. I would refer people. There's a discussion about it by Professor James Smalls. He on YouTube. He really answers the question quite well, I fear. So I know. So
I'll look for that. I'll look for that one. I know Professor Smalls. Okay.
Yes, we were privileged. Just as a side note, we were privileged to have Professor Smalls speak at our anniversary last year. He gave the keynote for the anniversary message last year, and he's a scholar's scholar. He's a really good brother, and if you look on YouTube, and he's being asked on Saul Netter's program about this issue, and so he's talking about it. But there's two trails, if you will. One says that people from from Asia across the Bering Straits and came down into the Americas that way. And now through DNA evidence, DNA has shown that people that are classified by Europeans as Australoids, people that they call the Aborigines, which is a derogatory term if you broke that word down, and people that have the same DNA makeup that are in southern India and places like that came into the Americas through the South. And that's why some of the pictures that we see are, their skin is rather dark. And so that's one of the explanations. Also, African people from the continent of Africa were living here. And they're very ancient, but they were not the only ethnic group, only phenotype that was here. Just to belabor this even more, the word America, we're told that it comes from Amerigo Vespucci, but really, in fact, that person was in Nicaragua, in the place that we call Nicaragua, and they called the land Americae, and he changed his name from Abednego to Americae. And that's how this whole North and South America got to have the name America, and it meant land of the winds. So, but they're very old fossils of Africoid people found in Brazil. And of course, in In the Yucatan Peninsula and other places, you find the large Olmec heads there and Black people there. And then there's also a group of Black people called the Folsom, a group of people. So a variety of different phenotypes you can find, in, the different skeletal remains and other anthropological evidence, archaeological evidence that prove that, okay, you have people that are Asian looking, really Asiatic looking. You have people that really resemble the Australoid type of people, dark skin, but their hair is more wavy. Some of their features are broad. And then there's also African people. And if you, in Dr. Ivan Van Sertima's book and other works like that, he shows that if you look at the west coast of Africa and the east coast of the Americas, there are natural currents in the ocean. And Thor Heyerdahl proved in 1969 he had a boat that was made by people from the Canary Islands, and it was made out of papyrus. So that means that it was a paper boat, and they sailed from the west coast of Africa. And the first day that they sailed, the rudder broke, which means the steering wheel broke. But they kept on with the experiment, and what they found was that you don't need a rudder. You don't even need a sail sometimes. You can leave the west coast of Africa, and there are natural currents in the west coast of Africa that will take you to the Americas. So I know that's a long answer. Sorry, Judy, but I hope I answered your question.
No, that was a good one. I was going to say Tahita Tupac L, I believe she is a Moor, at least that's part of, yeah. I don't know if she has some possible thoughts, but anyway.
I was, what was interesting to me, that name Tupac, I always thought that it was African, but it actually is a Native American name, Tupac, and we'll deal with that a little later. Okay.
Yeah, well, thank you. You're sure right. This is Tahita Tupac L, and I just want to chime in.
Yes.
Let you know that I was here.
Hi.
Over someone's house, and I didn't want to, be too rude. But thank you, Judy, for inviting me into this sacred space. And hi to Jalen and Imhotep and all the organizers and all the regular people that are always on. So yeah, and Omi J. I just wanted to say hi. And I did want to say that I'm grateful for, I think I'm grateful for being grateful, because the more that I'm grateful, I'm able to really appreciate what I have and what I've had and where I am and who I am and what I can become. So I'm grateful just for being grateful, to have that as a feeling and emotion or inspiration to be grateful. But I would like to speak on Thanksgiving, or the ungiving or the misgiving, that I do not uphold the desecration of Indigenous people in no way. So I do not celebrate this holiday, even though I love family, I love gatherings, and I love macaroni and cheese, yams, greens, beans, and all that food. I haven't ever, not once, had prepared a meal like that and invited everybody over under the guise of Thanksgiving. I went to ones and ones homes and was the one to pray for the meal. And I let them know that my intention is not to gather to celebrate a holiday that the Europeans initiated against the desecration. And now that I'm finding out that they basically ate us. They didn't just give us smallpox, they did a whole lot of other things. So I'm not going to uphold their ritual, even though it's a beautiful thing. Now more than ever, the Black families that come together, because COVID and other things have, got us apart from each other. So Ones and ones I do not judge. And I'm not somebody who's on a podium preaching again. Well, y'all should do that. You do that. I know that I'm not going to do that because I follow natural time and natural ways. So I'm not going to uphold his ritual because that'll put him more in power and make him stronger and everything like that. But the gratitude piece, I'm grateful for every breath and every step that I take on this earth, because I one day will drop my body and I'll be a memory in everybody's mind, So I really appreciate the call and, the forum to open up and share too. So I'm going to pass the talking stick and be quiet now, but thank you so much. Master teachers.
I love that reference, passing the talking stick. That's another Native American tradition. Very good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
I just have to say thank you, sister. That was very well said. I really appreciate you sharing that. Your perspective on things.
Yes, yes.
Minister Imhotep, also we've got Just Judith, another guest she's been coming for several different sessions. We know her as Umi J, and she's on the bottom. Just wanted to let you know she's here.
Yes, glad to see Just Judith and Jomo Yakini. Jomo Yakini.
Another one of my guests too from Atlanta. Right, member of Asara Set.
There's a group in that's called the School of Chematology, and they have an expression that goes back to ancient Kemet many thousands of years ago, and it's called Yakini Yakini, and it means I'm protected by my own positive. It means I know what I know. So I like that name. And Jomo is, of course, the name of the great leader of Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta, the Burning Spear. So got a lot going on tonight. Going to keep going though. Thank you for your comments. So where we left off is the so-called pilgrims are not the pious, pure Christian people that they're portrayed to be. And so continuing on in Dr. Ishaka Musa's book, European Holidays and Mental Genocide, says the pilgrims as drunks and sodomites. Even the early pilgrims of New England, though very pious, were forced to appear so, weren't all that hardworking, very desirable characters. They weren't the hardworking, very desirable characters that we've all been led to believe. Governor Bradford, writing in 1642 of the severity of the punishments in his colony, said, and yet all of this could not suppress the breaking out of sundry notorious sin, especially drunkenness, uncleanliness, not only incontinence between persons unmarried, for which many, both men and women, have been punished sharply, some married persons, but that which is even worse, sodomy. Nonetheless, Mayflower ancestry is considered the highest in the United States. So Dr. Boroshango has some clips like that throughout his book. Here's another one. Lazy pilgrims steal from the Indians. The Indians, to whom hospitality was a creed, welcomed the whites at first, but soon found that they had one idea: loot. One of the first acts of the Pilgrim Fathers on touching American soil was to steal corn from them. These savages, as they called them, had no rights that Christian European was bound to respect. Had the Pilgrims touched some European shore and seen their baskets of corn, wouldn't they have considered that theft? Later, they were to capture Indians and sell them as slaves in the West Indies. And lazy pilgrims resort to slave labor. The only labor available was the Indian, whose enslavement began at once. The very presence of Indians, badly armed, who could be forced to do rough work, had a tendency to make some of them slaves. I'm sorry, that word got cut off. And then here, he cites the cruel mistreatment and began with the Spaniards, coming in with Columbus. The Spaniards considered Indians just one step above the beast. Let me stop right there. So this is one of the reasons why, I meant to go here. This is one of the reasons why it was so easy to do. They were not human to them, or they had classified in their mind that these people aren't human. And so, we're justified. We manifest destiny. God gave us the right to do this to these people. How many are familiar with the Iroquois nation, the Iroquois Federation, rather? Anyone heard of that? Iroquois Federation? Well, the Iroquois Federation, the way that they organize the various so-called tribes is the beginnings of the. Okay, yes, go ahead, Jomo. You wanted to say? You can speak. Go ahead, man. Jomo. Okay, Minister Mahdi. You got to go. Okay. Minister Mahdi has to go, but glad you could join us. Oh, his sound isn't working. Okay. Well, this is how the Constitution, they took part of what the Iroquois Federation did to write the Constitution of the United States. So if they were so savage, why would they use their structure? Anyway, guys aren't saying anything. I hear you breathing, but I know you're out there.
I was simply in input that the thing that keeps coming back to me with the Europeans, definitely not their moral character, but their military might and their tolerance for killing and slaughtering appears to be somewhat, I won't say unique to them, but they seem to have taken it to a level that no other group of racial types that I'm aware of have amassed the types of killings and torture and horror they have. And they're able to tolerate that. And then they're able to reconcile it in their own minds, which makes them extremely dangerous.
Yeah, you can do that. You go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, that's why I appreciate this session, Brother Minister. I appreciate it, and that's what I'm thankful for, the community that we're in, and my mind continues to grow, and my spirit is deepened, and I appreciate all that. I wanted to also piggyback on Baba Katabazi's point, and why these are always so deep conversations, because not only is the military, that's the unique, violent, and it's very militaristic and very regimented and very systematic, but it always seems to, they use all that, that's why I'm piggybacking on what Baba Katabazi said, they use all that to change the mind. It's the mind. It always keeps coming back to the mind. Earlier in some of your slides, it was about how they had gone mad. It's always about the mind. And that's why, again, Woze is so important to me, because I can keep my mind. I can keep being reminded how it's, we're inundated with social media, we're, TV, you name it. It's always about getting your mind focused on what is not in your interest, but theirs. And so I appreciate us continuing to explore how our minds, our spirits, must continue to be focused on our origins and the spirituality that we had before we got here. That's it, Ashe.
Well, thank you. That's well. See, that's the premise of Dr. Borshango's work. European holidays, a mental genocide. So if you don't know these things, you just say, "Hey, I'm just going to get a turkey. I'm going to have all these," you know. But the idea of coming together with your family to have a meal is beautiful. It's good. You know, it's too bad we don't do that once a month, every 30 days. You know, it's good to get together and nobody died. You know, we're there, and I'm glad to see Aunt so and so. I'm glad to see my grandmother. I'm glad to see. Oh, look, my grandchildren are here. Or you know, that's a beautiful thing. And I think most people, you know, even you know, at this late day, I think most people are not dwelling on it, but just in the back of the mind, it's like, oh yes. It's some guy in a buckle, you know, he's got a buckle, he's got this hat on, and he's got these funny wingtip shoes, and his wife, you know, and you know, that's what we're presented. If you go and you look for Thanksgiving decorations, they're not going to have this, what we're talking about tonight. So they're gonna have other things. Yes, somebody's
yes, I would like to say something. Yeah, when I was growing up, of course, I'm sure like everybody else, the Pilgrim, when I think about it, the Pilgrims, they were always seen as, in my mind, as a child, as good people. These are almost like, you know, evangelists coming in to, you know, greet and welcome the Indians and teach them things. But what I wanted to piggyback on with what one of the brothers said is that it really was, what they were lacking was spirituality. They had no spirituality and no morals. You know, it didn't seem like they had any kind of spirituality. That's what I would say. They were void of that.
Yes. So that's what you have to relate to. Thank you, Judy. That's what you have to relate to say, okay, how could one group of people do this to another people? So the Spaniards considered Indians to be one step above the beast. They called them people without reason. Finding them unwilling and useless laborers, they massacred them and fed their flesh to dogs. And now this is a bishop. His name is Bishop Bartholomew Las Casas. Account of this is one of the most horrifying of all documents on man's inhumanity to man. They even sent Indians to be sold in Europe. Columbus himself took 400 for sale there in 1498. The early American whites were as cruel. Connecticut whites massacred the Pequot Indians. Infants were torn from their mother's breasts, hacked to pieces. Heads of the parents were chopped off and kicked in the streets. Governor Bradford wrote, "It was a fearful sight to see them frying in the fire, streams of blood quenching the same, and terrible was the stench and stink thereof. But the victory seemed a sweet sacrifice, and they, the whites, gave praise thereof to God." Less than a century and a half after Columbus, the Indians were virtually extinct in such older colonies as Santo Domingo. You know, that's Haiti, Haiti and Santo Domingo, the island of Hispaniola, Cuba, Jamaica. Sacco thinks that had their exclusive use continued, they would have all perished everywhere. So they just, you know, it wasn't just diseases.
It was that tolerance.
Yeah.
That tolerance for violence and killing that they're able to handle and to rationalize.
Yeah. So this is, go ahead.
And what comes to mind to me is that when they talk about God and they do things it just goes to showcase and point that the God they considered God from their Christianity or their religion is the same, it's a false religion, false God of not what we call God.
It's just, okay. You and I have a sense of a loving God and something that a divine entity that is within us that we want to get closer to, and we're trying to live by the golden rule: do unto others, etc. And so it's just really almost unimaginable that human beings would do this to other human beings. But as we go on, we'll find out maybe the answer lies in the people that came, what type of people came. But continuing on in this respect with Bishop Bartholomew Las Casas, he says, upon finding that the Indian could not stand up under the overwhelming, strenuous labor forced upon him, the early trespassing settlers in America turned to the Africans. Bishop Bartholomew Las Casas, a name more vile to the African than that of Hitler to the so-called Jews, recommended to the King of Spain and the Pope of Rome, Roman Catholic Church, that Africans be kidnapped from their homeland and sent as slaves to work in the place of perishing red men. Had the beast not resorted to this tactic, there would probably not have been any Indian survivors left in the whole Western Hemisphere. So, it was his idea. Okay, they can't stand up to, all these things that we're doing to them, diseases and, we can't control our people from killing them. Let's bring in the Africans. And it reminds me of that movie, The Godfather. And some of you that have seen The Godfather, it's a classic movie. And there's a meeting when all the crime bosses get together. And in that movie, the reason why The Godfather had been an assassination had been attempted on his life is because he didn't want to use drugs. He didn't want his family to get into the narcotics drug business. And so one of the other crime bosses, put a hit out on him, and it was unsuccessful. Months later, they called a meeting of all the crime bosses. And in that meeting, they were discussing bringing in drugs. And one of the crime bosses, I think it was from Chicago, says, I don't want it among children. I want to keep it respectable. As a business, let's keep it in the darker communities. They are animals anyway, so let them lose their souls. So sometimes this man inhumanity to man, sometimes native people, people of color, non-white people are not considered human to the people that perpetrate these atrocities. So here's a caption, American Holocaust. This is from Oxford Press. Over 100 million killed. Christopher Columbus personally murdered 500,000 natives.
Minister Motep, do you know who the author of that picture, who the artist is?
Hold on. Well, let me see this, because this picture is here. This is another version of it. And let's see, does it have, doesn't say, but so Akanke, I would go to, let's see. I would go to this, this article. Let me see if I can grab it and put it in the chat. And hopefully that will lead you to where, because that picture is in here somewhere. I believe it is here. So let's see. No, it doesn't say.
Okay.
But let me put this article in the chat, and then you can, perhaps find some, do some research
Right. Okay.
on it. But I'm sorry, I do not know where. Let's see. What am I looking for? Chat. Okay. Hello. All right. I don't know why it's not going in. Paste.
I wrote down the name of the.
You got it? Okay. You got it? Okay.
Brother Minister?
Yes.
I think that remember when we were in production meeting, there's a setting that brings that block, because I see that gray block on the screen.
Oh, you do? Thank you. Yeah, you guys are supposed to tell me now.
So yeah, I think you want to go back into share screen and then take that.
I can't see it. Let me try that again. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So take that one off. And now, is that block still there?
No.
No, it's gone now.
Oh, you guys are supposed to tell me, because I couldn't see the block.
It just come up. It wasn't there the whole time.
Okay. All right. All right. So let's see. Where were we? I think we were here. No, we were here. We got about 15 minutes. It's amazing how fast time flies. So this is in the most, I pasted it and went here. Oh, I see. Anyway, look at what they're doing. They're burning these people. And then they're giving, God, I wish this hadn't pasted. Hold on, I'm going to try to eliminate that. What happened? Let's see. Oh, let's see.
Undo.
Undo, huh? Yeah, there you go. Undo typing. Let's see. Undo paste.
Just keep undoing. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just keep doing that. Huh? All right. Oh, I did that so many times, huh? Ah, there it is. Thank you, Baba Jeff. All right. So coming up now, look, the Spaniards took babies from their mothers' breasts, grabbing them by the feet, dashing their heads against the rocks. They built a long giblet, low enough for the toes to touch the ground and prevent strangling, hanged 13 natives at the time in honor of Christ our Savior and the 12 apostles. Then straw was wrapped around their torn bodies and they were burnt alive. Wow. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Minister Imhotep.
Yes,
That, for me, again, this laws of opposites just continuously comes up in my mind, always, now and everything. But it's almost as if, not almost, they were devils. They were shaitan. They were not, isn't that, to me, they're the opposite of right.
Yeah. You know what? I don't want to, and I know this sounds funny to some people. I don't want to classify a whole group of people because there are bad people, and there are in all ethnicities, all races. There are good people in all. But one of the things that I think is it kind of will let us know, well, why were they able to do these things? And that being, now these are soldiers, but here is here's another. In spite of this gruesome reality, every year on Thanksgiving Day, Americans in a strange and gluttonous ritual overstuffing themselves with turkey and other delicacies, and then proceed to recline in hypnotic trance to watch the football game. Some scholars believe that the custom of watching the football game on Thanksgiving is in essence an eerie subconscious recollection of the grotesque sport engaged in by the pilgrims as they tore suckling babes from the breasts of their mothers, hacked them to pieces, chopped off heads of the parents, and kicked them in the streets. Even Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers of the American government, a framer, signer, and of its Constitution, and himself a slaveholder, and so if I was able to complete that quote, it talks about he thought they were animals too. That was his view of the peoples there. But this is something else we need to consider. Europe empties its jails into the New World. If the English colonies were to be peopled, how could it be? Stockholders in the Virginia venture found the answer. Use it as a place of punishment. Ship the convicts and others of England's unwanted here. Why hang a strong man for stealing a shilling or breaking into a ship when you could use his labor? In 1611, the very year King James Version of the Bible was published, Governor Dale urged King James I of England to banish all condemned persons to Virginia. Before that, they were shipped to India. But the voyage around the Cape of South Africa was long and costly, and America was much nearer. Those of Oxford goal were set, and young people with previous criminal records, the Committee of Trade in New York, petitioned the authorities to send to New York all the prisoners to be transported from Newgate Prison. Of course, all sent were not actual criminals. Some were debtors, other political dissidents, prisoners of war, labor agitators, and the like. Some may have stolen a loaf of bread or to make their sixpence. That's a form of money back in the day. But a good many were murderers, robbers, forgers, counterfeiters, house burners, highwaymen, and the like. So these were the people that were sent here. Their history is showing, they're petitioning the king to send those. England continued to empty her jails into America until 1783.
Imhotep.
Yes.
Yeah. It's so nice.
In those,
like
there's some Constitution here. Yeah.
I don't want to get a snag.
I'm sorry, somebody's going to have to mute because.
It's Tahita, Minister Imhotep. Tahita said she was at a house party.
It's so beautiful.
Okay, yeah.
It feels nice.
If she could mute.
Oh, thank you, honey.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll try to call her.
I think that's on just Judith because her screen is lighting up.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry.
All right. That's all right.
I just want to say that weren't some of those Europeans the one who were operating the slave ships? too. Did you ever hear that?
Yes. So these are people. These weren't, shall we say, the best people. Americans have never really ceased to be bandits and criminals, as evidenced through her aiding and abetting the rape of Africa and the approval by constitutional law, the long continued enslavement of Black people in this country, for which, even after the so-called Emancipation Proclamation, we have never received just reparations. What could be more criminal than Euro-Americans having kidnapped us from our homeland, brought us here to the New World, and forcibly made us build a nation for them, and after centuries of amassing unto themselves a fortune off of the blood, sweat, and tears, scarred backs, psychological and spiritual trauma of our ancestors, never once offered to make amends for the gross injustice. So those were the people that were brought here. Here's another one: whores and harlots. Were brought here to the Americas. I don't have to read this, but it was bringing all kind of not the virtuous people that we're told to admire as the Pilgrims, the Puritans, etc. And then this question is asked about America: how many millions displaced, hunted, cheated, lied to, dispossessed, raped, harassed, assimilated? And you know what? It continues. It continues. Many of you have heard of the Trail of Tears or the Trail of Death, and people they had to walk over 600 miles. Took 2 months, brought across the country. And then there's just the genocidal. I mean, it's as if hacking people to death wasn't bad enough, or just killing people or giving them diseases. So if you go by the UN, they talk about what is genocide. The UN Convention on the Punishment and Prevention of the Crime of Genocide describes genocide beyond outright murder of people as the destruction and extermination of culture. Article 2 of the convention lists 5 categories of activity of genocidal as genocidal when directed against specific national, ethnic, racial, religious groups. And one of the genocidal things is just taking their culture. So here's a picture of a Native person from Canada, a before and after picture. This is, he was forced to attend a Canadian Indian school in 1910. There was forced assimilation. These people in this school obviously look Native, but they're not dressed that way. And here they are, forced assimilation in schools. They have the highest mortality rate of any U.S. minority because of all these diseases that came from Europe. And then many of you already know this, I'm sure, but there's a high alcohol addiction among the Native American people, particularly now in New Mexico and Arizona and other places. People of color really should not drink alcohol. I'll just say that. My sisters and brothers from the continent, I've gone to parties and I've watched them drink, and they just kind of lose it. And I used to hang out with some friends that were Samoan. They shouldn't drink either. And native people from the so-called Americas shouldn't drink. There are a lot of deaths attributed to that. You know, this is a year, 5,500. And then at the bottom of this chart here, it has an additional, look, there's 7,300. You know, this was in 2000, from 2001 to 2005, and who knows what it is now. So I like this picture. It says, I want you to relearn your culture. He's talking to those of us that consider ourselves American. You know, I want you to relearn it. I want you to investigate. I don't want you to accept the lies that have been, you know, perpetrated about what happened to us. So Holocaust, over 100 million Native people killed. And these, okay, this is a picture of some people that resisted. You know, Crazy Horse. You've heard that name, Crazy Horse. That's him. That's Zapata. This is Geronimo. And this is Tupac. These are people that resisted. This is Sitting Bull. Cuauhtemoc. You know, a lot of times when I talk to particularly Mexican people, and I tell them that my name is Imhotep, they always bring up Cuauhtemoc. And Cuauhtemoc was a chief, and when the conquistadors came in, they tried to get him to tell them where the goal was, and he refused. They tied him to a stake and lit his feet on fire. He was seated and lit his feet on fire, and the flames came all the way up his legs, and he never let out a sound. So there's also among Native people a story of their resistance. And this is the original Homeland Security. They've been fighting terrorism since 1492. So we're going to conclude like we began.
Red man, you have to fight for your land. Just like the days of old, you'll have to be cold and bold. Don't let the white man tongue fool you. Don't let his papers cool you. With tricks and lies, he's told the land. Refuse and resist the white man plan. Stand on big mountain, it's your ancestors' earth. Land is power, without it life has no worth. Stand on big mountain, you'll have to be strong. Good must overcome, the struggle is long. He came to Turtle Island with fire water in hand. Gave it to the red man, then stole his land. Gave us an image of Indian so wild. The image we got on the screen as a child.